Hi guys, Chris here, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about the books that I read from October 27th to November 2nd. First up, I read Death at the Daylily Cafe by Wendy San Eckel, and I gave this book 3.25 stars. This is the second book in the Rosalie Hart series. In this book, Rosalie is called upon by a friend whose sister has just become the main suspect in the murder of her husband, and Rosalie's friend wants her to help her clear her sister's name. I feel like I would have liked this book more if I had read it closer to when I read the first book. I spent most of this book trying to jog my memory about the characters and the setting, and so I think that really held this book back. The mystery part of this book was decent, though I did figure out who did it. Honestly, at some point I would like to read it again back to back with book one and see if this gets a higher rating when I'm not spending a majority of the book trying to jog my memories about the details of the series. Next up, I read Crown of Feathers by Nikki Pau Preto, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. This book is told from multiple points of view. We follow Veronica, who is hiding out with her sister Val, and they are looking for phoenix eggs as they both want to become phoenix riders. Then there is Sev, who is an animage but who is hiding his powers as animages tend to be enslaved. He is hiding out as a soldier with the Empire, which is the same people who would enslave him if they found out that he was an animage. Lastly, there is Tristan, who is a Phoenix Rider and is currently living in part of the rebel camp as Phoenix Riders and their phoenixes are hunted down by the Empire, so he is also in hiding. I loved this story. I really liked how the multiple points of view really helped to build the world and help you understand what was going on with the larger overall plot and how animages and phoenixes were treated. Seb's was especially important to building that detail as he, being a soldier, was working directly with enslaved animages. The pace of this book was really quick, so once I started it, I really didn't want to put it down. I thought it was quite interesting that during this book there were letters and historical documents and other writing throughout this book that told the history of the Phoenix Riders and this world and really added details to the story. I really enjoyed getting to see the bond between a Phoenix and their rider, as that definitely helped to understand how hard it was for people like Tristan. They're in hiding, and of course they're worried about their phoenixes and the idea that if they're captured, their phoenix will die, and you get to see how much that would hurt the rider themselves because of how strong that bond is. There was also a really interesting twist at the end, which I obviously can't talk about, but I'm very curious to see how that plays out in the next book, and I will definitely be continuing with the series. Next up, I read Death Overdue by Alison Brooke, and I gave this book 2.25 stars. This book follows Carrie, who is thinking about leaving her town until she's offered the job as head of programs at her library. She ends up taking it, but during her first major event, a retired detective who is talking about an unsolved murder that he believes he has solved suddenly dies. This throws Carrie into a hunt to find out who killed the detective, as she believes that that person is also responsible for the unsolved murder he was speaking about. I was expecting so much more from this book. In the description, it also talks about how it's a spooky library and there's a ghost that's going to help Carrie or get involved, and really there is a ghost, but the ghost doesn't factor into the plot all that much. Like, I was expecting there to be much more from that, so I was quite disappointed. I also didn't like how Carrie immediately had two love interests. Like, they came on really quick. didn't always make sense and sometimes overshadowed the rest of the plot. And when I'm reading a cozy mystery, I'm reading it for the mystery aspect, not the romance aspect. And at times it felt like the romance part was the main part of the plot, and I just didn't like it. I also didn't like Carrie herself, and that is a definite bad sign for a book when you don't like the main protagonist. I found her to be a bit annoying. She only took the job because it was offered. She didn't really have any passion for it. She didn't seem to really know what she wanted out of life. And again, it was almost a bit insta-lovey with these love interests of hers. And I didn't like it. She got way too into the romantic interests, and it just took away from the rest of the book for me. I also wasn't particularly into the mystery. Maybe this is because of the romance aspect of the book, or maybe it just wasn't a strong enough plot to pull me in. Either way, this just wasn't the book for me, and I don't plan to continue with this series. Next up, I read Ghost Squad by Claribel A. Ortega, and I gave this book 4 stars. In this book, we follow Lucily, who lives with her dad. She is also able to talk to the spirits of her family. One day, she and her best friend Sid accidentally wake up some malicious spirits. They then have to set out to save the town from the spirits they unknowingly released. I really enjoyed this book. I read this book on Halloween, and it had like the perfect spooky vibes I was looking for. I love how we got to see Lucily's relationship with her dad and with the spirits of her ancestors. There's such strong family bonds in this book, and I really like that. I also really enjoyed the friendship between Lucily and Sid. I also adored Sid's grandmother's cat, Chunk. She was quite the character, and I really liked her. My only drawback with this book is that it ended rather quickly and easily for my taste. I wish that maybe the ending had been a little bit trickier and a little bit longer. I think that would have bumped up my rating a little bit. Either way, I really, really enjoyed this book. And like I said, it's the perfect Halloween read. And if Ortega were to write more books in this universe, I would definitely check them out. Next, I read Dandelion Fire by N.D. Wilson. And I gave this book 3 stars. This is the second book in the 100 Cupboard series. In the first book, Henry York is staying with his aunt and uncle in Henry, Kansas for the summer. He is sleeping in the attic when he realizes one of his attic walls is covered in cupboard doors. With the help of his cousin Henrietta, he finds out that these doors are actually portals to other worlds and proceeds to go through them. This book came together really nicely in the end, but the build to that could sometimes be slow and jarring. It had multiple POVs, and just as I get into a groove with one of them and really be ready to sink my teeth into what was going on, we'd switch points of view and I'd have to start all over again. But like I said, the book at the end really came together nicely. Like, I really enjoyed how the author kind of drew all of the points of view together at the end of the book. Even though this wasn't my favorite, I do plan to read the last book in this trilogy. Lastly, I read Lovely War by Julie Berry, and I gave this book 3.5 stars. This book is about 2 love stories. First is Hazel and James, who met right before James was set to head off to the war. The second is Aubrey and Colette. They met during the war, with Aubrey being a Black American soldier and Colette being a Belgian refugee. Their love stories are told by the goddess Aphrodite with the help from some other gods, and this book is set in World War I. I thought this was a very interesting way to share the story. By having these gods and goddesses tell these love stories, it created a very interesting perspective and voice for the book. I really liked getting to see the banter between Aphrodite and the gods that we got to see. I just wasn't as invested in the love stories as I probably should have been, though. I typically was waiting for when we go back to the scenes with Aphrodite and co. Those were the scenes I was most into because I liked the story that was being told there. Because even though the main point of the book was to tell the story of Hazel and James and Aubrey and Colette, there was still a story going on when we'd visit and check in with the gods and Aphrodite. So overall, like I said, I really liked the premise of this book of having the gods tell this love story, and I like the stuff with the gods, but I wasn't as invested in the real world stories as I should have been. So I could only give this book 3.5 stars. So these are some of the books I've read recently. Have you guys read any of these books? Let me know in the comments below, or let me know a book you've read recently that you've loved or hated. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me flower emojis in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!